I think she's going to be out.
She's out. She's sick.
Joseph Wong.
Here.
Bruce Quickshank.
Here.
Sam Yee.
You.
Rachel McGrath. Jay's not going to be here. Karen Sarsadia-Sai.
I'm here.
Chris Lancer.
Present.
Richard Centeno.
Here.
Richard. Tina Wright.
Hurry up.
Here.
Hurry up.
Here.
Oh, there's Rachel. Okay.
There she is.
I got her. Thank you. Philip Loy
Here.
and Paula Rodarte. Okay, you have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay. Let's review, please, tonight's agenda, keeping in mind, of course, that tonight our October meeting is a training. Do we have any changes to tonight's agenda? Okay, not here.
Last meeting then, Debbie?
Until January, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I think we might be good for tonight's agenda. Thank you so much. Erica, do we have any public input tonight?
Yes, we do. I'm not sure if she's here. Kelly Mahonen.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. It's nice to see all of you or meet you all via Zoom. I just wanted to join this meeting because I'm in the process of reapplying for regional center for my kiddos and figure if I'm going to be working with you all for the next decade or so, I would like to get a better sense of who's on the board and how you all operate.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate when we get parents and family members involved. Thank you. Anyone else for public input tonight?
Yes, Mr. Carl Arguila.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Carl, please go ahead.
Good evening, board. Erica, can you confirm my audio is working?
Yes, sir, you're good.
That's great. Thanks so much. Hello again, board. As you know, my name is Carl Arguila. I am the father of Kevin Arguila, an intellectually disabled deaf client of the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. And as you know, tonight's board meeting, including my comments, are being recorded under the provisions of the Bagley-Keene Act and will be posted for public review on my blog at www.sgprc.net. I've just posted a URL on the blog. Before I make my next comment, I'd just like to point out, I see Miss Judith Enright in the participant list this evening. So happy to see her there. So for your information, we have a blog post regarding Miss Enright's contribution to our community on my blog. So please go to www.sgprc.net, scroll down along the right and look for Judith Enright. I am requesting once again, board, that you terminate your conservatorship of my son, Kevin Arguila. Your conservatorship of my son is inflicting grave harm on him. For example, my son has experienced a 150-pound weight gain during the period of time that you have been my son's conservator because you put him on psychotropic medications. Perhaps that was the only way you could put him in an institutional setting. It is imperative that the board take immediate action to protect my son from coming to further harm. So new parent Terry, keep in mind that these lovely people, they have the power to become your child's conservator. And that will make a big difference in your life. I'm sorry if I got your name wrong, Kelly. Last month, board, I informed you that a probate court hearing was scheduled for October 13th. We were hopeful that your conservatorship of my son would be terminated at that time. Instead, you opposed termination of your conservatorship. And worse, you lied. You filed a declaration with the court, including statements from my son's former service coordinator, Chrissy Heiler, which I allege to be blatantly false. Do you recall, Dr. Weller, when you and I met on December 9th? You remember I told you that perhaps the number one thing that you could do to improve the reputation of the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center was just to stop lying. Lying on IPP evaluations, lying on reports to parents, and making false statements to courts. And so, board, our family begins now our 7th year of your conservatorship of my son. I'd like to remind the board once again that Dr. Weller and I participated in a mediation session last June 27th. Dr. Weller committed that, quote, service agency will attempt to have a claimant assigned a deaf service coordinator. And for your information, still don't have a deaf service coordinator, still haven't heard from Dr. Weller. So finally, board, I am requesting that the official minutes of this board meeting accurately state that I am requesting that you terminate your conservatorship of my son, Kevin Argila. Thanks again, board. I look forward to meeting you again next month.
Thank you very much for that statement tonight, Carl. Appreciate it. Okay, we are going to move into the big portion of our meeting tonight, which is our board trainings. We are going to be starting with, actually it's a two-part tonight. Understanding diversity, equity, and inclusion is the first portion, followed by a review of our whistleblower policy. So I am going to hand it over to Bridging Voices for our training tonight.
Julie, to start, I'm sorry, do we also review contracts tonight?
We're going to be doing that per the agenda after.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for confirming that, Lucina.
Excuse me. Good evening, everybody. Buenas noches. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful. Jesse, did you want to start?
Sure. I have the privilege of introducing Lena Moran Certo from Bridging Voices. We have had the privilege of partnering with Lena on different activities, and she's very familiar with working with boards and doing the required trainings. And so thank you for making time to be here this evening. I'll turn it over to you. And then, of course, if there's any questions or anything at the end, we will have time and space for that. And then immediately following, we're busy training tonight. We'll have Judith Enright for her part, but we want to start with our diversity, equity, and inclusion required training. So thank you so much for being here.
Perfect. Hello, everybody. Buenas noches. My name is Lena Morana Cereto. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I feel like I need an honorary regional center badge or something. I was with one center this morning. I'm with you now, and tomorrow I get the opportunity to see another center. So I absolutely love the work that the regional centers do. I have learned so much about your work and, you know, the hardships that you all experienced too, perhaps during the last few years. And so I just want to start by saying that I'm a big fan, and that's why I'm here, because anytime I get to chat with you all, be with you all, learn from you all, I absolutely love it. So let's get started because I don't have much time. Can everybody see the screen there?
Yes.
Fantastic. So tonight we're going to have maybe a 20-hour session in about 50 minutes. Yeah. So interpreters, please slow me down. And I'm sorry if I speak too fast. I'm an interpreter. I shouldn't. But we are going to talk about the topic of understanding diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what is that connection to linguistic and cultural competency. And this is a big topic, right? So please know that no one's going to be an expert after 1 hour, less than an hour. This is definitely a conversation that is ongoing, that is a lifelong journey. And I just want to get you some common language tonight. Oftentimes people have conversations about these topics, and we can get really defensive. We're like, I'm not racist, I'm not sexist. And sometimes that just comes from, we're talking about the same thing, but sometimes we use different words. So hopefully I can give you some common language tonight that you can continue to use on the board. And I want to start, you might have seen some kind of image like this, in the past few years. Yeah. And it's a good image, right? Because oftentimes, we use this to talk about the difference between equality and equity. So I want to just show you a little bit. If we start looking at the blue letters at the bottom, diversity, and that's the circles here in the middle, right? The blue circles. And I'm sorry, my eyesight is bad. Diversity is really about the demographics. Who is at the soccer game? Who are the people? So think about regional center. Who do you serve? Right? Who are the families? Who are the consumers, the clients, the community? You certainly have demographics, right? I had the wonderful experience of meeting your consumers earlier this spring, different folks and different languages. So that's the diversity. The question is, though, do they feel included? Do these, does this blue child, orange child, purple child feel like they belong at this soccer game? So if we think about that in parallel to San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center, I'm going to call it just the Regional Center from now on. Does every consumer feel? So yes, they're receiving your services, perhaps they're on your list, but do they all feel like they belong? And here's the question, right? What side of the fence are they on? Are they in the game? Is it someone you communicate with, can talk about the center, ambassador, right? Because we need those. Or is it somebody that's like, oh, I need the service, but I don't know, I speak a language that's not English. They're going to ask me questions, and in my culture, we don't answer those questions. We don't talk about these things. So that is the inclusion and belonging piece. And then equality, this is where this chart usually comes into, right? Well, here's the solution. Let's give everybody services, right? We give them all the same thing. And as you can see here, we've given them all a box so they can see the game. Does that work? Usually not, right? Usually not, because we see that the blue child, it was helpful to have a box. The orange child has a box, but in order to see the game, and sometimes I equate that to, well, we have Google Translate on our documents on a line. Google Translate is this. I still have to go and search for it. I still have to see if it's okay, right? And then we just have, well, you speak a language that we don't really serve. So yeah, sure, we can Google Translate, but, and language is one example, right? So does equality work? No. But one thing that I learned about the centers and what I absolutely love about you all is that you are person-centered and you understand that this does not work, right? It doesn't work because you have different needs, different consumers, right? Different diagnoses. So what happens then is we have to think about, well, so how do we make sure then that we address that we have this diversity? And we want folks to feel welcome, included at the center, whether they speak English, whether their culture is different than yours, than the service providers. So many things that come into diversity. Oftentimes people just think about race, perhaps, but think about the diversity within the board. Gender, right? Race, socioeconomic status. Some of you are extroverts, some of you are not, right? There's a lot. How many of you have been on the board for a long time? You hold a little bit of seniority in history, right? So diversity is really a lot of things. So one thing that we've discovered, right, is it's not just enough to give people what they need. That's kind of the access. You see here now we've given the blue child, we left the box. That's great. He only needed one box. The orange child actually needed 2 boxes to now see the game. And the purple child needed 3. But what do you notice about this image? Because this is usually where we stop, right, with the meme online. Anything you notice about this image that's a little bit different perhaps than what you've seen before? You can put it in the chat as well. And hint, hint, it's in red. Excuse me. I seem to have lost my chat somewhere. No, okay. So I'm going to point your focus down to the 2 red circles on the bottom. And so one thing you can see that's a little bit different, and here might be easier to see, they're not standing on level ground. So they didn't start in the same place. Right? So already, if we look at the purple child, not only does the purple child only have 1 box, but where is the purple child in terms of that ground? The blue child has a little bit more of an advantage, right? Because not only does that 1 box help, but take a look at that higher ground. And not only the higher ground, but what else is a little bit of an advantage for our blue friend here? The fence, I think I saw somebody say, or mouth, right?
The flip goes down.
Yeah. So we don't have any situation here where they're playing the same game, right? Where they're looking at the game from the same conditions. That is then what we're going to call equity and justice. So it's not only that we're going to give folks what they need, which we know now is different, right? This is the person-centered approach. It's not just giving them what they need, but understanding as well that there are structural barriers, that there are disparities, that these families, these consumers are coming in. And this is something that they've carried for a long time, way before they saw you, right? What do you imagine are some of those disparities and structural barriers that some of your consumers might be facing? Again, feel free to type in the chat if you'd like. What do you think? So I'll say that from my experience over the spring and summer working with regional centers across California, some things are very similar. Obviously, some things depending on region and geographical area were different, but I heard a lot about language. I don't speak English, right? And my service coordinator speaks English, but I don't. Or I love my service coordinator because they speak my language. But when they refer me to this program, then what happens, right? So language is one. Cultural beliefs. There's so many different cultures. And, some cultures are really open to talking about, intellectual disabilities, and some, it's very taboo. So what am I going to do if I'm coming in as a person who does not talk about these things, and I have a service coordinator that just wants me to talk, and I know it's good intentions. They want to give me services. Well, maybe I don't know that as a consumer, but you know that. They might not. They might be in that situation. There are then also those isms that folks come in with. And this is, when we're talking about racism, sexism, heterosexism, et cetera. And sometimes it can be hard to talk about these things, right? Because what happens is sometimes our values and our life experiences are clashing with our consumers. So what I want to do is, essentially our blue friend here has some privilege, carries some privilege because of that ground and because of that fence. But sometimes we know when we talk about privilege, that can be a little bit hard because sometimes folks will say, well, no, I don't have privilege. I worked really hard for everything that I have. Yes. And also, our society has created this system where there are groups of folks based on identity that have privilege and those who don't. But let me give you an example before we get too deep into this. Anyone in the Zoom room left-handed, if you don't mind sharing with us?
Yes.
Yay, okay, I can only see one screen here. Let me get over here. You might be raising your hand and I don't see it. Anybody else? Okay, thank you, thank you. All right, so that must mean that the remaining folks here are either right-handed or you can use both, right? As your dominant hand. Okay, so if I were to ask you, do you think that this world, this society, is a right-handed society or a left-handed society? What would you tell me?
Right-handed.
Wow, that was really fast. How do you know that?
Because during the entire time I've gone to school, the desks discriminate against me blatantly and force me to take notes in an awkward position just because I'm left-handed.
Yeah, those
and they don't give me
that.
the choice of having a desk that's appropriate for my left-handedness.
Exactly. So we're talking about that rest on the right-hand side, right? So you can rest your hand while you write your arm.
Right.
Any other examples that folks have about why you think that this is a right-handed world?
Why it's a right-handed world?
Yeah.
Most people, the vast majority of people are right-handed.
And so then what else do we see? So you mentioned the desks. That's a great example.
I still remember in elementary school, I didn't think I could use scissors because they only had right-handed scissors.
Yeah, scissors.
Yeah.
What else?
When I go to the sporting goods store, I like to play racquetball, and I need a glove to play racquetball, and it's almost impossible to find a left-handed racquetball glove.
There you go. Julie, I think I saw you come off mute there.
I did. I am right-handed, but my daughter is left-handed, and I was thinking exactly what Kelly was about the scissors, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
That the predominant, number of scissors, of course, are right-handed.
Yeah, absolutely. We also have notebooks, right? Spiral notebooks. So what happens as you're writing with your left hand is you're smudging everything that you just wrote, right? Mugs. If you're drinking from a mug and you're right-handed, you'll see your favorite cap there. But if you're left-handed, the cap, you don't see the cap. There's so many things, right? But let me ask you this. How many of you right-handed folks wake up every morning and go, oh my gosh, I'm so awesome. Power to the right-handed people. Yes. Anybody? No, right? And I'm going to assume that you certainly don't walk into like a Target or a, Vons or whatever you have and go, oh my gosh, everything in this store is meant for me, the right-handed person, right? Do you do that? So now that you're kind of hearing, some experiences about what it feels like to go shopping and, I want to play racquetball. This is something I enjoy, but what frustration that I can never find a glove. Or, throughout my schooling, I always had difficulty with the desks. All these things that you're hearing, I'm going to make an assumption. Maybe it's not, good to do that, but y'all look like very nice people, kind people, because you've joined a board and that takes commitment, right? So I can't imagine that any of you are sitting here going, oh my gosh, stop complaining. It's just a desk. It's just a notebook, right? Nobody's doing that. What happens though, is that when we have that right-hand experience, we don't necessarily think about it because the scissors are easy to use. The desks are easy to use, the mugs, all these things. You really would only notice the difficulty if you were left-handed, like some of our participants shared tonight, or if my child is left-handed or my husband, or so. that is kind of what we call when that privilege is baked into the system. We usually don't think about it. We just live in it. It's like a fish in water, right? They don't think about it. It's there all the time. So what I want to point your attention to, because this is, what I was talking about earlier with consumers, families, community coming to you with these different identities. It's not just about the services that they receive and the great job that folks are doing providing those services. We also have to understand that some of those lower fences and the higher ground comes from experiences that they just live in the world, kind of like the right hand and the left hand, right? So this chart here, where'd it go? Give me just a second, everything erased here. What I want to show you is a chart that was developed by Dr. Rita Hardiman and Dr. Bailey Jackson. And basically what they did was take a look at what were the identities. They've outlined 13 different identities that in the United States, at least, we see that some of these identities have what we call that right-hand experience, and some of the identities that are living the left-handed experience. So I'm so sorry, I have no idea what happened to this. And I apologize, I think my computer is also done with me here. Okay. There it is. So, Dr. Rita Hardiman. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry about this. Okay, here we go. So let me show you these identities that they came up with. And not that they, invented. This is just what they saw in their work. Okay, here we go. And the identities that they talk about in terms of social identity, one is gender, age, class, religion, education, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, mental functioning, marital status, language, nationality, and physical functioning or appearance. So these are the 13 identities. And what they discovered is that society has kind of given that one-up experience or that right-handed experience to these folks. So take a look at the one-up group. You don't have to share with us, but if you'd like to just jot down on a piece of paper, basically, if you identify as this column 2 here, then you are in the one-up group. So for example, for me, gender, I'm not a cisgender male, so I would then be in the one down group, and I would put a point for that, for the one down. I am not a baby boomer, I'm a millennial, so I would put another check there on the one down. So you can do this for yourself just to take a look, and this is not in any way intended to make you feel bad, because remember, like the right hand, you did not choose to be right-handed. You didn't choose to be left-handed. But unfortunately, like we said, we can see that for our left-handed folks, there are difficulties that they're facing. And I really appreciate the comment about school, because this is a place where you're supposed to go and learn. And how can you do that when you have this obstacle in the way? So take a look at the list here. And again, you don't have to share these results with anybody. But the reason I bring this up is because in addition to the intellectual disabilities that your consumers come with, there's also the reality of this that exists in the world. And sometimes these are the barriers, those low fences, the higher fences and the lower ground that we're coming into. And we heard a lot about this over the summer and spring, listening to consumers talk about, themselves, their experiences. So what I'd like to show you is something we're working on now with a couple regional centers. And again, understanding we had very short time for this particular presentation, the question is, so what, right? I'm a good person. I'm doing my best. I don't hate anybody. I don't discriminate anybody. Yeah, absolutely. But again, we still have to understand that folks come with experiences, and they come sometimes with discrimination that they're facing, things that have prevented them from getting to you and your services, right? So what I want to show you is right now we're focusing on cultural humility. This is the mandate from DDS. And you might have heard cultural competence, cultural responsiveness, there's been so many things right across the years. They might have another one next year. But right now we're talking about humility and not competence. And here's why. Sometimes I come to these workshops and folks say, well, Lena, just give me a list of all the things that Latinos do and don't, and what I should do with Latinos and what I should not say. Or give me a list of all the things that I should do if a Korean person comes to my office. I can't, right? Not only because it would be generalizing. For example, if I told you, well, if a Latino person comes into your office, make sure you have salsa, really hot salsa. What happens when I walk into your office and I'm like, I don't like spicy things, right? So we can't generalize. And we understand, remember, diversity. Everybody's different. Even if I'm a Latina and there's another Latino in the room, yeah, we have some cultural traits, but we also have different experiences. For example, if a Latino male came in, remember we saw a cisgender man on the one up column versus me, a female, cisgender female. So the goal is not cultural competency. We don't want to be experts in all of these cultures. And I really don't think we can, right? What we want to do, and this is so in line with what regional centers do already, is follow through on that person-centered and understand who is the person in front of me, who's the family. What is it that they need from the regional center? What could we provide? But also, are there things that maybe, I want to provide because my experience has led me to those services or to that thinking, but what if that's not what the family wants or needs or feels like they can do? And I'll give you a few examples. So I met with some families. Oh my gosh, these were great. And I had a Korean parent tell me, and she said everybody, so take that with a grain of salt, because again, this is her. She said, we're shy people. We will never, ever come up to you and say, we need services now. Okay. So imagine if a well-intended, good intentions service provider says, you know what, you need to advocate for yourself. You need to go in there and show them that you have rights. That's a clash, right? With a culture that is saying, no, we don't do that. I remember one thing I've done a lot of work with a lot of sectors. In schools, for example, schools would always push and advocate for families, be involved, go to the classroom. So in Mexico, certain parts of Mexico where I'm from, we don't do that because the thinking there is teachers are experts. That's why I'm sending my child to school. What do you want me to do there? What could I possibly do there, right? So it's not that they don't care. It's just they're bringing in these values. So what is cultural humility if it doesn't mean we're going to be experts in every culture? A lot of self-reflection. So we start to identify, what is my culture? What are, what are cultural traits that I have? So for example, here's one. A cultural trait for some Latino is that they're very touchy, huggy, right? When I see my family, they always want to do the one kiss. I don't like that. I'm not a touchy person. So think about that. For example, if you're a Latina like me, do you always go up to people and you're like, hey, you want to hug them? So we have to think about that, right? Because there are cultures that do not want to touch. I am a high context person. You might have noticed that. If I tell you a story, it's going to go on for days because I need to give you every detail. So let's say that you are from a low context culture. Yes, no, fact, right? So what happens if we have a service coordinator who's low context and then a consumer who's high context? And I'll give you the best example, my grandmother. I took her to the doctor and the doctor said, I'm just going to review your medicine and you tell me yes or no if you're taking it. What did the doctor want? Low context, yes, no, yes, no. So here we go. Metformin? Oh, yes. I remember the day that the doctor prescribed metformin. Actually, I think it was my oldest son that took me, and every medicine had a story. And you could see the doctor's face going, okay, right? And so I understand that, sometimes we don't have the time. You have service coordinators with a lot of the cases are large or limited time, but these are important things. So we have to continue to reflect, understand our own biases, our own experiences, our assumptions, again, our privileges, what are our one-ups, our right hand, and acknowledging that that can have an impact on interactions. This is about lifelong learning too. So we were always want to be asking. It's not competency, it's humility, which says, it's okay if I don't know. And I'm going to ask. And, rather than assuming that I know who's in front of me and just because they are X, gender or race or culture, I know everything about you. Let's ask. Let's encourage folks to ask those questions, to seek that information out in appropriate ways. And the more we know about them, the better we can serve them. And regional centers are already doing that, right? And being open to diverse perspectives. So we're not always going to expect that people adapt to our way of thinking, our culture, but are there things that we can do, to help folks feel more comfortable? That's the inclusion part. Feel at home, feel welcome, feel valued. And that can be a challenge, right? Because we also don't want to always put the burden on that person. Oh, well, why don't you tell me how you like to celebrate your holiday? Right, so let's do some research. Let's find out so that folks who are in those one down groups don't always feel like they have to teach. Oops, sorry. And ultimately, respect and empathy, it really prioritizes that we have to build trust with our staff, with our community, with our consumers. And that doesn't happen overnight. So sometimes it's really about just continuing to ask, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Also, let me tell you a little bit about who I am, who the regional center is, and coming back, right, to the board or to the leadership and saying, I know we only have 30 minutes for an intake, but when we're working with an interpreter, 30 minutes is not enough. So what can we do? We've been translating these documents. This is great. But families are telling us that the level of the material is still difficult to understand. So what can we do? We always have these great events and meetings, but they are during lunchtime, so nobody's showing up. And so that's what I mean when I say, do that self-reflection, because the thinking could be, see, they don't care. They don't want to be here. We're offering all these services and they don't want to be here. And that's not the case, right? Not necessarily. So why are they not here at noon? Let's ask them, right? So here comes the survey, if you will. What would be the best time for you to have an event? What type of event do you even want to have, right? Involve them. Bring in their culture, their knowledge, their experiences, and let them tell you and celebrate that. Because for a lot of folks, what I found out from the focus groups that we led was their culture is so hidden and they've had to really assimilate. I so appreciate seeing interpreters here tonight because we brought interpreters to every focus group we did. And when the interpreters introduced themselves, there were quite a few times when the participants said, I have not heard my language in so long, right? So for my left-handed folks, I'll get you the name. I'll send it to Salvador. There is a left-handed store in San Diego. And imagine what it must feel like to go in there and go, scissors. I don't know about racquetball. I'm sorry, but scissors, notebooks. Oh my gosh, right? So what if your consumers felt like that? Where the language wasn't a barrier, their culture wasn't a barrier, transportation, childcare. This, like, what are all the other things, right, that can be in the way of folks doing their wonderful work? And that's the connection to equity. The more that we can work on our cultural humility, now that moves into cultural responsiveness. So if we acknowledge that we're going to be lifelong learners, we're going to ask questions, it's going to be okay, though, if you make a mistake, right? You're not going to be an expert overnight. We are all going to make mistakes in this work. But as long as we're willing to keep learning and being okay with making that mistake, that's part of humility as well. And not just giving up and saying, see, they don't care, right? Or always putting it on them. So here's the equity part. We do understand that, yes, there are a lot of great services that we can provide. It's not a one-size-fits-all model. Some folks are going to need a different approach. And you know how we found that out this summer? We had these wonderful surveys, and we said, let's do a QR code for everybody. Guess how many surveys we got? So then we said, let's print it. That seemed to work a little better. And then this wonderful team at San Gabriel, and I don't think they're online tonight, but oh my goodness, they started just going directly to people and talking to them. And that seemed to work. But we also had people in the focus group who said, hey, can you just text me? Right? That's diversity. And is it going to be a lot of work? Because can I just send one email, Survey Monkey? You could, but if you really want to hear from them, you'll have to recognize that some people really appreciate information in different ways. So the more we can work on our cultural humility and responsiveness, the more then that we can start to support you as a board, right? Support the center, the leadership in creating more of these equitable opportunities, because the services that you have are so incredible and amazing. And I think what was difficult for me to hear was how many people just said, I didn't even know there was a regional center. What do they do? So I will stop there for now. I'll share that after. And see if any folks have questions, reflections, thoughts. It's okay if you say, Lena, all of this is incorrect. But just what are you thinking as I'm giving you this information?
Well, what I was thinking is that this is something that the regional center has addressed. And we have a service access and equity department. I don't know if you're familiar with it, or if you are, how you would comment and grade it for being successful in providing the opportunities you're talking about.
That's a wonderful question. I've gotten to meet a lot of folks at your center, and I would say I'm not a consumer, and I don't have anybody around me that is a consumer. So I don't think I can answer the question of, is it successful? I think that's where you really have to go back to your consumers and ask them and your community. And we had a chance to do that. What we're waiting for next is to present this data to leadership. And, you're going to find some folks that are saying, yes, I have great communication with my service coordinator. I have the services that I need. And then you have some folks that say no. And so what we have to do is look at, okay, yes, what's working with that person who's saying everything's happening? Because that's good, right? We need to celebrate that and continue that. But what's happening over here? Why is this person saying, and it's not just like, oh, they want more hours of respite and we can't do that. That's not what we're focused on, right? There's got to be some reasons. And what we discovered through these focus groups is that a lot of those reasons are lying in those barriers that we're talking about. So I think they can be a better, judge of, is it successful? And how do we measure success? Is it numbers or is it, a feeling of somebody walking in and just saying like, yes, like, thank you, regional center, right? Great question though. Other folks? Thoughts, reflections?
I have a question.
Yes.
Many years ago, I was a social worker and I was interviewing a client. And one of the things that I did not recognize is that the client could not read. Okay, and that amazed me because, like you say, right hand, left hand. And the more we talked, the more it became apparent that this person had no opportunity as a child or an adult to go through formal education. And he was in his 50s or 60s. So you mentioned education. That's a barrier for him because everything has to be explained and read and so on. That might be something you can add to your list.
Yes, thank you so much. That's such a good example. And to put the cultural humility piece in, how do you find that out about a client without just outright saying, do you read? Right. So, and then thinking about, because this is one thing that, I came to find out, clients are saying, we don't know these services. Then you have a bunch of wonderful, super tired case service coordinators that are saying, but we send you this, we give it to you. But that's a great point. So what if they don't read? Even if we translate documents, you have languages that don't have a written component. And even if they do, you're absolutely right. There's folks who did not have access to education. That's where the cultural humility part is. So we're going to find this out. We're going to be open to it. And the responsiveness, the equity is saying, all right, let's make some videos. Let's make some videos that say, hi, welcome to the regional center. This is, your service coordinator. Or, what else could we do to show folks? I did some work with a museum a few years ago, and they noticed that their Latino population was just not going into the museum. So what I helped them develop was almost like this pre-guide where we took pictures and we said, okay, this is where you're going to park. This is the entrance. This is where you buy a ticket. And you might think, like, wasn't that common sense? But no, not necessarily, because a family who's never been to the museum, maybe that was the fear or the barrier. Everything's in English. How do I even pay, right? Do they accept cash? So that's one idea of a cultural humility, right? So what the possibilities are endless for the regional center. The big step is just being able to say, okay, that's the humility. I don't know everything. It's okay. Doesn't mean that everything you're doing is wrong. No. You're all doing amazing. But what else can I do? Or what can I change to make sure that I can, reach more folks? Thank you for that question. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Now I see all your chat in here. Any other thoughts, questions that you might have?
Yeah. Do you ever have okay, let's say that you have a consumer, like if there's a consumer who have a hard time, like can't like talk, or if he cannot talk or whatever, what do you do with that person? So let's say you have a consumer of yours and you see somebody come up behind them, and that person, somebody else come up to that person with your consumer, go, hey, can I help you or whatever? Can I help you or whatever? And you notice that that person cannot hear or whatever. So if you have somebody like you, if you know like sign language or whatever, and you can translate to that person, then that other person could know what that person's trying to say to you and stuff like that. Do you ever have anybody like that?
I just want to make sure I understood. So if there is somebody who is, because I heard nonverbal, but then also maybe can't hear, and somebody else is not aware of that and starts to talk, would I intervene and kind of help them out and be the conduit of information?
Yeah, translate.
Well, as I mentioned here, I do that in my professional life because one of my jobs is I'm an interpreter. But I think it's also, if you know that consumer, that's your consumer, and you know that about them. So yeah, I think in the moment you can definitely step in, and it's not about telling this person like, hello, do you not know this? Because no, this is not about blame or shame. But what can you do to support both folks so that nobody feels like they did something wrong? And then is there something that you can share with all staff or your department so that, I learned a lot of working with nonverbal folks. So let me share that with the staff so that next time, if I start talking to somebody and they're not looking at me, they're not responding, rather than thinking rude, I can, okay, hold on, let me try this, right? So I don't know if I answered your question, but that might be an example.
Yeah, you did, because I know a little bit of sign language. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. So you can try just hello in sign language. Maybe that'll work. That would be beautiful if it worked.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I'm down to 2 minutes, so I'm gonna just put my contact info up here. If you have any other comments, feel free to share. You'll see my email there.
Thank you, Lena. On behalf of the board and for the Regional Center, I just want to say thank you for being here this evening. My process comment listening to this is a good reminder for us. I know you mentioned it's abbreviated and there's so much more to unpack on this topic, but I think as we all, and I can speak for everybody here, I would like to say of how busy and how things are moving so quickly every day to get through, to make sure we're doing all the work that needs to get done. The work for us, I'll speak for Regional Center, that we moments to pause and reflect to make sure that we're not missing the mark on some of these areas where we can find space to pause, to reflect, to really put this into action where we can within the day. So it's part of our work that we do and part of our way of working versus it being an extra thing over to the side of how do we integrate it more naturally into the work that we do. But I appreciate us having it on our radar because I think all of us it resonates with. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. And the last thing I'll say is, I know I focused a lot on consumers today, but this is for your staff as well. They are also coming in with those, left hand, right hand experiences. So how do we make sure that the center for staff feels inclusive and we are understanding and cognizant of those cultural differences and, the one up, one down. And then by extension, if you're modeling that as a board to leadership, to staff, that'll go out. It's a ripple effect. It'll go out into your consumers and your community. So I appreciate you all so much. Thank you for taking the time, and I hope to see you all soon.
Wow, thank you so much, Lena. I would have to say the one thing that I really took away from this is be informed so the one down groups don't have to teach so much. And that's probably like one of the biggest takeaways. I've sat in multiple DEI trainings, but that's the piece that I probably am going to take away. Imagine being in that position that you're always having to be the one to educate. And I think also just creating space for even like you said, right towards the end, for staff too, just to have open communication, not only for their own experiences, but their experiences with our individuals that they serve too, because I hadn't even really considered the timing aspect of what even languages and the extra time that it takes for that to consider in, what is already a pretty full workday. So a lot to consider. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
One more thing. If someone does share with you without you asking, right, they just take that upon themselves, that's a gift. So cherish that, because there are times when, somebody will say something, and if I'm feeling okay, I will say like, listen, I just want to talk a little bit about what you said. For me, it's usually when people call me eloquent. And I'll say, the reason that hurts me is because you sound surprised that I have this vocabulary. Like someone like me couldn't talk like this. So tell me instead, what did you like? Why did you go to that eloquent? Oh, because I think that I love the words you use, or you're so dynamic. Great. Tell me that. Because look at my ego, right? I love that. As opposed to just going to that word that is usually a sign of like, oh, like people like you don't talk like this, right? And sometimes it's that, really? So if I were to tell you, right, that, oh yeah, I have a master's degree in engineering, and you say, you do? That's the part that hurts, right? What do you mean? Like, why wouldn't I, right? So anyway, I'm sorry, so much talking. Have a beautiful night. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. Greatly appreciate it. A lot for us to reflect on, right? Okay. It's almost a little strange to try and redirect our attention and our focus now to the other half of our training tonight, and that is on our whistleblower policy with Judith Enright.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here tonight and see so many familiar faces I haven't seen in a while. It's really, really wonderful. But I must say, Mr. Arguila and I go way back, and we agreed to disagree about what he's posted on his website about me. That said, let's talk about whistleblower complaints. Shall I share my screen and put it up, or would it be easier for everybody to pull it out of their packet?
I think it's shared screen, just make it.
Yep.
Everybody.
Yep.
Use the screen, it's easier.
Did it work?
There it is.
There we
Perfect.
go.
Okay, good. So a lot of what's contained in this 5-page policy is set out in this purpose statement. Whistleblower complaints are designed to provide just about everybody with a means of complaining or setting forth a concern about something that's going on at the regional center. So therefore, regional center employees, board members, service providers, contractors, persons served and their families, and other partners and friends, which means just about anybody. So this policy sets out how to report activity that you believe is improper, performed by a regional center representative or a provider or contractor. And the regional center and the state wants you to know that if you do provide information about something you believe to be improper, there will be no retaliation. The regional center welcomes the reports about anything that you believe to be illegal, unethical, or inappropriate, so long as it's in good faith. And that means so long as you really believe it and you're not doing it to hurt somebody or you're not making it up. Good faith in this context means it's filed for the purpose of correcting something that's wrong and eliminating a bad practice, and it's based on reasonable suspicion and knowledge. It definitely protects people from making those complaints, again, as long as it's in good faith, and nothing bad will happen to you if you file the complaint. Regional center employees and service providers and contractors and board members are expected to adhere to the highest standards of business and personal ethics. That means everybody's supposed to do their job the way it's supposed to be done, without conflicts of interest, without misuse of state property. Everything's supposed to be done according to law. So the definition of the complaint for the complaint purposes defines improper regional center activity as anything done by a regional center employee, officer, or board member while doing regional center business that is in violation of a state law or federal law or regulation, or that violates a contract provision, or that amounts to fraud or fiscal malfeasance. That means misusing state funds or lying about what's done with money or any number of things. Misuse of government property or gross misconduct. That means gross misconduct means really bad stuff that's mean or just not right. Incompetency or inefficiency. Improper service provider or contractor activity is the same. If somebody is violating state law or regulation or their contract, or being fraudulent, lying about what they're doing, or misusing funds, or incompetent or inefficient, it's subject to a whistleblower complaint. So whistleblower complaints need to be distinguished from a number of other things. You have consumer rights complaints under Welfare and Institutions Code Section 4731, which is when you think the regional center has done something wrong that doesn't relate to services, that doesn't relate to your services. Early start complaints, due process requests, mediation conference requests, fair hearing requests, Title 17 complaints, and citizen comments and complaints. All those are separate from whistleblower complaints. The policy gives you a link to the DDS section that has additional information about all these complaints. Each one has separate and distinct procedures, and this policy only relates to the whistleblower complaint. So when you make the complaint, it's important that you set it out as clearly as possible so that the person reading it can figure out what's going on. If you describe what's done, by whom it is done, and all the evidence that you have, then the regional center has a better chance of investigating what's going on. It shouldn't be speculative. In other words, it shouldn't be, I wonder if what they're doing isn't this, this, and this. Instead, it should be based on evidence. And you should submit with the complaint any evidence that you have so that the regional center has a start on where to investigate. Important not to give them original documents, though, because you won't get them back. So if you want to submit documents, make sure they're copies. If you don't provide a name or other information about witnesses or documents that identify the person you're saying did the improper conduct, the regional center may not be able to figure out where the person works or what they could do to really investigate. So you really have to make an effort to give as many facts as possible and make sure they're factual and not what you think might be happening. Reasonable suspicion is good if you have facts to support it. Where am I? I am not keeping up with what we're talking about here. So we've gotten through the first paragraph of filing complaints and clear and concise statement, providing the right information about who, what, where, and when the activity you're uncomfortable about happened. And now You can file complaints anonymously. If you do, though, if you file a complaint without giving your name, you have to give the regional center or the board enough information to investigate. Otherwise, it may not be possible to pursue your complaint. And again, the whistleblower policy shouldn't be used to resolve disputes concerning the nature, scope, or amount of services that are included in the IPP or the IFSP, because you have the Lanterman Act and the Early Intervention Services Act appeal procedures to handle those disputes. Disputes regarding rates or audit appeals for which there is an appeal process also are separate and are not part of the whistleblower complaint. Now, for example, if there's an audit process that's being conducted and you think the person conducting the audit is not acting according to the regulations or is being unfair in the way the audit's done, that could potentially be a whistleblower complaint. So who do you send the complaints to? You send them to Dr. Jesse Weller, to Erica Gomez, to Lucina Galarza, or Raquel Sandoval, or Salvador Gonzalez. Also, Jaime Anabalan. You could also file the complaints directly with the Department of Developmental Services. Let me catch up with myself. So phone numbers and addresses are listed. You can also file a complaint with the Board of Directors. If you want to file a complaint about something at the regional center that you don't want to go to the regional center staff, you can file it with the board. So no individual or agency who or which reports a violation of law or regulation or other inappropriate action or condition in good faith shall suffer harassment. So let's talk about what that means. Nor will there be retaliation or adverse consequences. That means you won't be harmed in any way if you file the complaint in good faith for the right reasons. Any staff member who retaliates against someone who's reported a violation in good faith is subject to discipline up to and including immediate termination of employment. It's not intended, the policy is not intended to, it is intended to encourage people served and their families and service providers and agencies and community members and staff, regional center staff, to report serious concerns within the regional center prior to seeking resolution outside the agency. So there'll be no retaliation if it's in good faith. How is it investigated? The regional center receives a complaint by phone, fax, email, letter, or in person. The person who gets the complaint does everything they can to get enough information from the person filing the complaint to refer it to the appropriate person or division for review and resolution. So if you've filed a complaint, the regional center person with whom you file it may ask you for more information, may ask you to provide evidence. And if you haven't given your name, that's really, it becomes more difficult. But particularly your name is helpful with contact information, and the person who takes the complaint puts that in their review so that there's a record of who took the complaint with all the information in the complaint. All reported complaints are investigated promptly, and corrective action is taken if it's found to be warranted. the recipient of the complaint, the person that you make the complaint to, will notify you of the conclusions and any action taken if they have your name and if it doesn't violate client confidentiality. So it can't violate confidentiality of a person served or their family or an employee. This also applies to complaints of retaliation. So here in bold lettering, we talk about good faith. Anyone filing a whistleblower complaint concerning a violation or suspected violation must be acting in good faith, which means having reasonable grounds to believe that the information is enough to make a finding that a law or regulation has been violated or that some other inappropriate behavior or condition exists that needs to be fixed. If allegations are not substantiated or are found to have been made maliciously with the intent to harm somebody or to be knowingly false, it's reviewed as a pretty serious offense. Again, with confidentiality, the regional center makes every effort to maintain confidentiality of the complainant, the person who files the complaint, if the person wants confidentiality. There are some circumstances in which the regional center is unable to keep confidentiality because some statute ensuring the health and safety of individuals served in regional center contract compliance says they have to disclose the information. In those circumstances, the regional center will attempt to inform the person filing the complaint of its need to disclose certain information before it's released. The complainant, the person filing the complaint, may be identified to appropriate law enforcement agencies if they're conducting a criminal investigation. And all mandatory abuse reporting requirements are in effect as an exception to confidentiality. In other words, if there's suspicion of abuse that the regional center has to report, then confidentiality is waived because it has to be reported. The regional center by law and its contract with the department posts its whistleblower policies on the website, and it notifies employees upon becoming employed and in their annual reviews of the policies. It notifies of changes within 30 days of any change. Board members receive copies in their board packets every year. Individuals served and their families receive notification of how to get to the policies in their annual services cost statement. And the service providers receive an annual notification in the payment process of how they can access the policies. So I have just zoomed through an awful lot of material, and I'm going to stop sharing and ask if there are any questions.
I do have a couple of questions.
Good.
Okay. I noticed that in the list of subjects that you can file a complaint about is competency.
Right.
How do you prove incompetency? I mean, it might be obvious, but it isn't always, because you're dealing with a administrative structure and you may not know all the ins and outs. Does that happen very often?
Not really. Not unless somebody is grossly incompetent. Okay. And then, I mean, if you run into somebody who doesn't listen to what you say and ignores the law and doesn't appear to understand what they're supposed to do, that's pretty obvious.
Okay.
There are circumstances that you won't necessarily know without filing documents that show what they did compared to what they should have done.
Sure. Okay. My next question is, what happens if you have a board member or board members who exhibit prejudice against another board member? Okay. Yeah. I recall that there were some instances way back when I was on the board, we had something like that happen, but it was very difficult to, one, make the complaint. Secondly, for the people to finally resigned. Okay. But that would be probably a good example.
Well, you could file a complaint with the board president, or you could go to DDS, or you could file with any of the regional center representatives and ask them to have it reviewed by the board.
But the offending members were also members of the board.
Yeah, but the board it wasn't the board president.
No.
So the board president could address it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Judy, you were president of the public input segment of the meeting, right?
I was.
Right. Okay, you listened to Carl Arguila deliver what has become a monthly rant and alleging all kinds of malfeasance and lies at administrative hearings and making some very serious allegations. Would Arguila's statement constitute a whistleblower complaint, and should it be investigated?
It's not filed as a whistleblower complaint. It's on his website. If he filed a whistleblower complaint, it would definitely be investigated.
Okay. So that's odd, because you would think he would know that, but he never does it. He just appears, gives his screen.
I am not competent to comment on Mr. Arguila's motivations.
Okay. All right, but he could do that. And what he's saying would be investigated.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I was going to ignore the whole thing, but there's some stuff in there that's really distasteful to me. And so I wanted to say I don't agree with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did it make sense?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I don't think he makes sense, but your response made sense. Do you feel like you were libeled by what he published about you?
I do everything in my power to live my life without concerns about it.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. But was the presentation on the whistleblower policy clear?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Judith, if it's okay, I was going to also add, because Kelly's question made me think about accessibility, where we can access the document. And I also want to highlight, when you do click on the link that our president, Julie, put into the chat here, that we can, when you access and click the link, it's also in multiple languages to make sure it's accessible to our community. So we've done a really good job with the service access team of trying to get this information out to be transparent in different languages, so we can reach as many communities, so they always know that this is available to them as well. So I just want to highlight that.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judith. We really appreciate that. Every year, it's such a good reminder to have, so that it is top of mind, especially in the climate that we find ourselves in. So thank you.
Exactly. Thank you all. And again, it was great to see everybody. Take care.
It's great to see you too. Thank you.
Bye.
Judy.
Bye, Judy.
Bye.
Okay. Wow. If we actually look at our agenda, we are 4 minutes ahead of schedule, actually. So I know, I saw that, Lucina. Okay. So So now there are a couple of action items for this evening's meeting. The first one is I'm going to, as coming from the Executive Finance Committee, I'm going to pass the floor over to Dara.
Good evening. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Good evening, President Chetney, members of the board, regional center staff, DDS, members of the community. Tonight, I'm going to present our contract amendment for the D3 allocation for the board's review and approval. The D3 amendment, as shown here, identifies, this is actually the amendment contract, and I'm going to move over here to the details of what funding is being considered in the D3 allocation. In this D3, there is a deallocation of 1.1 million for unmet reduced caseload ratios, continued funding for the language access and community cultural competency, as well as miscellaneous funds. The miscellaneous funds consists of special funding. That is a contract between DDS and a program called Blue Whale. Blue Whale is working with DDS and subject matter specialists on an RFP for a project called the Uniformed Fiscal System Modernization and Consumer Electronic Records Management System. This project is set to replace existing systems and automate key business functions. So there's just a couple of items here on this, this D3 amendment. Does anyone have any questions? If not, I would like to request the board's approval of the D3 contract amendment.
So we're asking for a motion so that I, as board president, can sign it, correct?
Correct.
Wonderful. Do we have a motion to accept the D3 contract amendment for the board president's signature?
You don't. Okay.
I move we accept the D3 contract amendment.
Thank you, Bruce. Do we have a second?
Rachel, you want to second it? Rachel will second it.
Thank you, Rachel. Do we have any further discussion on this D3 contract amendment? Okay, not hearing any. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Raise your hand, Rachel.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. That motion passes. Look forward to signing that for us.
Thank you.
And I think that's all from Executive Finance, correct?
That is all, yes.
Wonderful, thank you.
We do have an E amendment coming, but it won't be here. The contract itself didn't come in today, so we expect to see that the next couple of days. So I'll present that probably at Executive Finance.
Wonderful. We look forward to that. Okay, the Executive Finance Committee did have a total of 3 contracts presented at our last meeting, and all 3 were voted to move forward for approval from the full board. So, Lucina, is that going to be you tonight?
It is. Mr. Travis is out of town, and so I am going to present the contracts for today.
Thank you.
For tonight, excuse me. And I know we're at the end of the evening, so I won't take a lot of time. So the first contract, and good evening, everybody. Good evening, Julie, members of the board, community members. Of course, we have our DDS staff here. Of course, we have our own regional center staff and our own executive director. I'd like to present 3 service contracts. The first one is going to be the program with Total Life Incorporated, or it's also referred to as Evolve. Total Life is actually a program that provides both residential and adult day services to individuals that we serve in our area. It has assisted people moving out of a developmental center, both at Lanterman and at Fairview. So they have quite a bit of experience in that area. The program specifically that we're talking about is an adult day program that has a huge community integration component. It serves adults 18 and over. In addition to their diagnosis of intellectual and developmental disabilities, these individuals may also have some mental health issues. They may be have resided in state developmental centers, IMDs, or other institutional settings, and many of them do have behavioral challenges such as physical aggression towards self and others. And so the program does provide a special service for us. They also do have a center-based component that's licensed by the Department of Social Services. For us, they serve, they can serve up to 45 people. The ratios are 1-2, and currently we have 29 adults served in that program. In addition to their direct service, they also have a behavioral analyst to assist with developing plans. They have a nurse that assists with the healthcare issues and provide training based on those needs. And part of their service is also providing transportation to program participants through a separate vendorization. And this is the program that we'd like that we've got approved for at the Executive Finance Committee. So I'd like now to, if there's no more questions, I'd like to ask the board to approve this contract for Evolve under Total Life Care Incorporated.
Thank you, Lucina, for that that overview. So yes, as Lucina just said, we did approve it at Executive Finance. We said yes, we really do feel like this should come to the full board for approval. Do I have a motion to accept this contract as presented?
I move we accept the contract as presented.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bruce. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I got Joseph first on that one. Thank you so much. Any further discussion with regards to this particular contract?
No.
Okay, wonderful. All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Thank you so much, Chris. All right, great. Total Life Evolve. Motion carries. Next one, please, Lucina.
Thank you. The next service agreement is for a transportation service, and it's with one of our large transporters, In Motion Transit Incorporated. They've been providing services for us actually since 2006. They are actually our primary on-demand transportation program. So they do a lot of transportation for us for our eligibility assessments for both on the early start and also on the Lanterman side. They also provide transportation therapy sessions, speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy. They have about 7 vehicles. Most of them have wheelchair capacity, ranging from 5 to 12 individuals on their vehicles. Although they are located in the city of, in Eastern Los Angeles catchment area, we do use them a lot for these on-demand services. They also do provide child car seats on their vehicles. So when a family does need that service, they're able to meet those needs. And when they transport, they will wait for the family, not just deliver them, but wait for them to get out of the appointment and return them back to their home or the place where they picked them up. So it really is an all-inclusive transportation service for us. During the state of emergency, they also were very, very helpful with us, and they offered a lot of services, including delivering a lot of PPP supplies for our providers and for our families. Unless there's any questions, I would like to ask the board to approve this contract.
All right, thank you. Wonderful. Yes, we see a lot of transportation, don't we? Do we have a motion to accept this this particular contract as presented tonight?
So do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you so much, Karen. Do I have a second?
Aye.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Tina. Any further discussion with regards to In Motion Transit? Okay. All right. All in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Thank you, Chris. All right. That one passes. And last but not least.
The last agreement is for residential services with ResCare of California, and it's specifically for Andover Home, which is one of our adult residential facilities for persons with special health care needs, or we would refer them to as RFPSHNs. Big mouthful in terms of that acronym. And Chris knows what I'm talking about. He works at one of the ARF positions. Res Care has been providing services, residential and day program services in our catchment area for many years. They actually started off providing services in intermediate care facilities, but have expanded their services to ARF positions and also to some of our specialized residential homes. They actually have a parent organization that provides services nationwide. So not only are they a statewide provider, they're also a nationwide provider. This ARP position provides 24-hour healthcare with intensive supports in a home-like setting, and it is licensed by the Department of Social Services. It serves up to 5 adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, but these adults are probably the most fragile in the system. They have to have pretty intense healthcare needs, including ventilator care, trachs, gastrostomy tubes. Their service always includes 24-hour nursing care, either at an RN level or the LVN level. This home was developed in 2011, 2012 to really support individuals moving out of Lannerman Developmental Center. It was licensed in April of 2024. Currently, we have 3 adults in the home, although it is licensed for 5. The home is very unique in that it's completely accessible with roll-in showers, shower beds, lifts in every room, due to the medical equipment needed by the people who live there. One also great thing with the ARP positions is they have a battery backup system so that if people are on a ventilator and something happens with electricity or rolling blackouts, it won't affect their health care. And so these are very specialized homes. And due to the needs of the medical needs of the people who live there, they, like I mentioned, not only do they have DSPs, they also have LVNs, RNs, and also respiratory therapists. So unless there's any questions, I would like for the board, I'd like to ask the board for their approval of this contract.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion to accept this contract as presented?
Aye.
Thank you, Tina. Do I have a second?
I see Sam.
Oh, I don't see. I should have my grid view up. Sorry.
Yeah, Sam waved his arm.
Oh, thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. I've made sure to put you back on what my colleague calls her romper room. So, okay. Do we have any further discussion on this contract? Okay. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand or both.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain, but I'm highly supportive of the services.
Noted. Thank you so much, Chris. Okay. All right. And I think that does it for our contracts tonight, correct?
Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Lucina. All right. Right on the dot, Jesse. 8:50 Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Julie. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to try to keep this quick because I snuck in my report on a training night, but just a couple of things on here that I want to make sure everybody gets for this evening. Can everybody see my report okay?
Yes.
And you get the little left-hand side too, but I'm not as tech savvy here as I should be, so I'll make this work. The first item I have, really excited to report out on strategic planning. We're making really, really good progress on developing our new 3-year strategic plan in partnership with our board and our committees and our ad hoc committee and all of our stakeholders. So we've been really active working with our consultants. We've hit a lot of milestones in this process, and right now the promotion, and you've probably seen our emails going out, and I've been bugging some people, so I apologize, but I'm really trying to get as many people to complete our surveys that we have available to get your input. We're trying to get as much participation as possible. And so I'll drop a link when I finish talking, or maybe the team can help me out and put the surveys in the chat if you get to it before I do. But we're really trying to get as much participation and reminders to everybody to complete. Our deadline is Friday. And so we're on that home stretch over the next few days. So if you have completed the survey, thank you so much. If you haven't had a chance, we would really, really appreciate if there's any way you can squeeze in about 15 minutes, hopefully less, to really get that done. And then you'll see that there's 3 surveys. One is for our staff, but the 2 surveys that you'll see is one very specific to individual served, family members, parents, and our board members. And then survey number 2, we've been calling is for service providers and our vendors. The questions are very similar. If you look at them, it's just a little different focus, just given the different audience, making sure that we're capturing all the needs in there. So if you can help us promote the survey, if you know people within your networks and your groups, if you can also promote the survey as well. Sometimes our constant contact, Julie and I found an error on one of them when it opened up, but we've been tracking that carefully, but sometimes it goes to spam. And so we're just trying to think of all the different ways that we can reach people. So please help us in that process. And for those that are participating in the strategic planning session for our board and committee members, that it's coming up very shortly. Eric is going to send out a final reminder because I believe the deadline is tomorrow for RSVP. And so we're going to do one more round of confirmations for everybody. And that's specific to board of directors, board committees, our ad hoc and executive leadership staff for the strategic planning session. So lots of moving parts. I just want to say thank you to the board for all your support and the strategic development committee and our ad hoc for all the great work and feedback. The process is really coming together nicely. I'm very impressed with our consultants, and we're on track for a December timeline still for completion. So now is your chance to get your input in there. We very much appreciate it. The Office of Administrative Hearings Advisory Committee, the second meeting was held on October 16th. I put a little recap here. It was very focused on logistics to the meeting, how the meeting should operate, and then members to introductions. I was appointed, so I'm part of the committee itself, and my term is up on May 31st, 2026. And so there's some work going on there to help reform and help give some recommendations to the Office of Administrative Hearings on how to improve the appeals process. So lots of good work ahead for that important area. A shout out to Sal's department for service access and equity. Sal is spearheading and his team are putting together workshops for families and our enhanced caseload. The enhanced caseload are our 1-to-40 ratio for individuals that are not receiving services or a very limited amount of services under the amount of $2,000 a year, which makes them eligible per the department standards for a smaller caseload ratio. And so to help support that work, there are workshops that are going to be occurring. And the first one was just held on focusing on navigating the regional center system and access to regional center funded services. And the department, in addition to that great work, is also getting ready to finalize their coffee series, Coffee with the Director. I've been invited for this next one on November 8th to meet with all of our different groups, our cultural groups, and our community, our important partners. So that we're looking forward to hear from everybody and to report out on all the efforts we've been doing to help reduce disparities. So lots of good work happening there. A few bills you'll see here in the report. One, our housing specialist is very excited about this one for AB 12. It's just an important part for individuals. And I see a hand raised here, so let me stop and pause. Sam, I think your hand is raised. And you're on mute. Sam, you're still on mute too.
Are you going to have coffee with the client? Are you going to have coffee with client?
Asking if coffee, are you talking about the events that he's having with the coffee in the community?
Yeah.
If you're going to be scheduled something with the client.
Yeah.
With clients? Yes, with clients.
I love that idea. Absolutely, Sam. We're looking at our calendar for 2024. As you know, we've been doing a lot of coffee and all over the community. We do coffee with staff. We're doing coffee in our service access. So as I mentioned, we love coffee at the regional center. And I'm more than happy to look at any kind of platform to reach all of our stakeholders And so I'm very interested, Sam, if you have any ideas, and I can partner with you, Yvonne, this, in your department. I know you touch in that area too, so I'm more than happy to do that. So I appreciate you raising it, Sam.
Is that you offering to help me coordinate it, Sam?
Yeah. Sam's ready.
I'll reach out.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Yvonne. I appreciate just some bills here. The rent security deposits. This is an important one. So starting July 2024, landlords may not request a security deposit valued over 1 month's rent. Depending on the landlord, sometimes we would see 2 months rent, first and last. That makes it very difficult for people with their financial resources to make that happen at times. And so this is a big one for everybody, and particularly for our community when we already have housing issues to begin with and shortages for independent living and supported living. So this is another win for our system. So we're really pleased for that. Lots of, you probably heard about the healthcare minimum wage going up, very specific language I'm going to be reviewing at our vendor advisory committee. Chris, there's some really specific language in there. So service providers are reaching out about how this might apply. So I'm going to go over all the framework in there of what we know so far as it relates to that $25 an hour increase. We're also aware of the fast food increase too for fast food workers in the industry due to Governor Newsom's signing of that going to $20 an hour for minimum wage. So lots of discussions going on out there with service provider community and regional centers about how we can support one another, continue to advocate for rates so we can pay people for the work that they're doing as we're competing with other industries. And then you'll see from the Department of Industrial Relations that starting January 1st, 2023, earlier this year, that the minimum wage in California will increase to $15.50 and that area too. So we're tracking as minimum wage increases go up. What does that look like in 2024 as we continue to navigate and pay people for the work that they're doing. You'll see some directives I mentioned in here specific to our reporting out as regional centers on paid internship programs and competitive and integrative employment. So regional centers have until November 13th to provide data to the department on fiscal year 22-23. So we'll be looking at those numbers. And then we have a notification around some very specific funding we got that from the department through federal funding to help support Part C through Early Start and exiting Early Start programming. And we got some extension to use some of those funds, which is a good thing. There's a lot of good work happening out there right now as well. And then some quality incentives that we've already reviewed, but I just want to keep it on here to keep it on everyone's radar. If you're a provider that is in one of these settings, very specific, that if you achieve some of the objectives, you can also get some incentive funds from the department. So we're going to keep that on there. The staffing stats, just to trying to go at a good pace here. We continue to grow as an organization with our recruitment. So we are currently at 487 authorized positions. So we're right around that 500 mark. And you'll see some of the positions that we're actively recruiting for. We've done a really good job recruiting. So thank you to Human Resources as we continue to grow to support our influx of individuals we're serving. You'll see that as of September 30th, 2023, we were serving 16,512 individuals. So we're making our way to continuing to bring more people into our service system, which is a great thing through our intake admissions department. And so you'll see the number of referrals coming in, that data for both our Early Start program and also for Lanterman for individuals over the age of 3 and older. And self-determination, we had a good report out tonight in the previous committee from individuals served. And you'll have data here. I'm really proud to report from the great team that we have. We have a fantastic team dedicated to self-determination, and that they have, with their efforts and their teams, brought in 137 participants and 2 self-determination. So that number is growing. And then in the report, you can see all the great work that's happening to help support self-determination and its continued implementation efforts. So that is my quick report. I want to check for the survey link. Yvonne's on it. Thank you, Yvonne, for dropping that in there. My closing statement, if you can click on that link or access our website and make time by Friday, broken record here, I would so appreciate your time and efforts, and we'll stop bugging after Friday for everybody. So thank you for letting me report this evening.
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, we would love to have way more information than just a small amount, you know, for the committee to go through when we're doing this entire process of the strategic planning. So that would be wonderful. So, and feel free, send it out to lots and lots and lots of people. So that was a jam-packed meeting today. Thank you so much to everyone. Our board will be going into closed session momentarily. So to discuss a legal matter. Jesse, who is it from the staff that we are requesting to stay for this closed session?
I'm going to keep Lucina, if I may.
All right, then. Thank you so much, everybody. Regional Center staff, our guests, board members, everybody, thank you. And we'll see you. Oh gosh. Oh, actually that brings up a good point. Hold on. Before we go to executive session, our schedule is a little bit different with the holidays coming up. So I think we put that in our board materials, didn't we, Erica? I'm sorry, I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Yeah, it's in there. So you're not gonna have a meeting in November. You're gonna have a meeting on December, I think it's 13th. Give me 1 second.
Yes, you are correct. I see it.
It's gonna be on December 13th at 7:15, but you're not gonna have a meeting in November.
Correct. Okay, yes.
To reference it, just go to your meeting materials. It's in there.
It is in there. Thank you so much. Yes. Yeah, that Thanksgiving holiday tends to get in the way of that November board meeting a little bit. So otherwise, we'll see everybody in December or sooner. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And Erica, just you have to make Jesse a host so that we don't close it out.
Oh yeah, let's not do that.
Okay. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Can I claim host? Oh, it's already done.
Perfect.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.